This is your friendly neighborhood Smarchitect. Meet Prashanth Southekal, a data and analytics and cybersecurity advisor, trainer, best-selling author. You can see those 3 books lined up behind him. A keynote speaker, award-winning professor, and I believe Prashanth 2023 10 most influential leaders, if I'm not wrong, from the CIO Look magazine.
Yes.
Fantastic. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Arvind. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
a pleasure talking to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Prashanth. Maybe a 30-second, overview of who you are. What's your background?
Yeah. So, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an author. I'm a professor, and I'm a consultant as well. So I've been in this business for almost 30 decades. 30 years. Almost 3 decades. I was born and raised in India. I was with SAP in India. Moved here in 2009. Then finished all the immigration formalities and started my own company, DBP Institute, which stands for Data for Business Performance, in 2012. And since then, we have consulted for almost 50 different organizations, from Vietnam to Spain to Netherlands to US to Canada to India, and all those companies. And I have written these 3 books behind me. I'm also a trainer. I have trained many professionals in some big companies like Whirlpool, ExxonMobil, Suncor Energy, and all those companies. And I'm also an adjunct professor, which is called the part-time professor in simple words, at IE Business School in Madrid, Spain. And last but not the least, I'm a father. I have 2 kids, a girl who is 16 years and a boy who is 12. They keep me very busy these days.
Maybe we can talk about your journey along the way. Like, how did you end up in where you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. I keep contemplating on those my journey as well. I finished my masters in India in 2000. And then I was picked up by Procter & Gamble for their office in Brussels in Belgium. That was important because that was actually the first time I sat in an aircraft. Before that, I never sat in an aircraft when I was 26 years old. So when I went to Belgium, everything was new. It was they were in Procter & Gamble. We had people from 50 different countries working in that setup. Then when I was in Belgium, I enrolled for the part-time PhD program at KU Leuven, which is about 30 kilometers from from Brussels, where I was living. And so that was going on. So during the day, I used to work. During weekends and evenings, I used to study a little bit. And that was going on. But for family reasons, I had to move back to India in 2004. So at that time, I had to kind of pause my PhD. So I went to India and I joined GE. So in GE, while I was working, I was pretty much impressed with their Lean Six Sigma program, because earlier what I saw in that Lean Six Sigma program was all this data and processes which were actually used for tangible business results. So earlier it was all like kind of a theory and a conceptual stuff, but here I used to see the whole organization, the education, the literacy, the culture, everything was geared towards using data for better business performance. So I was pretty much impressed. Then I took that course for 2 weeks. Then when I finished the course, I went to the manager and I told I want to be a teacher as well. I want to teach this program. So I took another 1-month training program to become an instructor in GE, and ultimately I became a Lean Six Sigma instructor while I was in GE.
Okay.
So there were some changes in GE, so I left GE and I joined SAP, and SAP moved me to Calgary in 2009. So I was doing all these projects. So in between, when I was in GE, my guide in Leuven, he said, hey, this remote thing doesn't work here, so why don't you go to this university in France? They have a program which is more suited for people like you who are traveling, who are remote and everything. So that would be better, and I'll make a warm introduction to the professors there and so on and so forth. So he did all those administrative things. So I joined for the program. I continued that program in 2005-ish or something. So in between there was almost like a 1.5 year break. So that was going very slowly. I was traveling. I moved from India to Calgary and everything. So ultimately, after 14 years, I got my PhD in 2014. So in the same time, thanks. So at the same time, I I quit SAP and started my own company. So that PhD actually kind of enhanced my branding in the industry. So then after that, they say that, right? Like once one thing leads to another. So from the PhD, I started my own company. From there, a publisher reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to write a book on data and analytics? So I said, okay, that's a good thing, because what I found in the industry was when I used to talk about the value of data, the whole thing which I used to do in GE, to people in Canada and US, they felt that data is more like a techie stuff. It is the IT people who talk about data. The business people don't talk about data. And at the same time, in the projects, I had a huge challenge about communicating the value of data to the business people. So I used to communicate better and better every day about how to articulate the value of data and analytics to the business people. Then I said, okay, why don't I write a book, especially geared towards the non-IT people, on how to use data for improved business performance. So that's where my first book comes, the orange one, Data for Improved Business Performance. So that was doing reasonably well. Then my publisher came to me and says, hey, can you write one more book? Then I said, okay, what I have been seeing is a lot of good things and bad things. So let me write a book on the patterns and anti-patterns of getting value from data and analytics. Then I wrote my second book, which is Analytics Best Practices, which was ranked as the best analytics book of all time in 2022. Then in 2022, actually, Wiley came to me and said, do you want to write one more book? And then I said, I have something on data quality. They said, that looks great. So let's write a book on data quality. So this is where I stand. So one is about an author, next is about PhD. And in between, by the way, IE Business School in Madrid reached out to me and said, hey, you have been doing a lot about data and analytics, consulting, talking and everything. Do you want to come and teach our students about data and analytics? So I was taken as an adjunct professor, which is like a part-time professor at IE Business School. So every year, twice, once in May, once in November, I go to Madrid, teach for about 3 weeks to the MBA students, and that's what I do. So basically, if you look at the kind of work I do or kind of work my company does, it is three things. One is consulting, where we help the companies get value out of digital data and analytics. Number two, in a secure way. That's why cybersecurity comes into the picture. Number two is all about education, which is training, teaching, all those things. That's number two. And number three is about research services, which is about blogging, which is writing ebooks, which is about going and speaking as a keynote speaker. Like next month, I'm in Switzerland and Poland talking in a conference about data and analytics. So the third thing is research services. So this is what keeps me busy, Arvind.
Prashanth, I think you already have a fourth book in you about
Which one?
Dr. Southekal. I think that should be your fourth book. I mean, you have such an interesting journey from a guy who used to go to Belgium and work for GE as on the IT side, and then you move to the tech side, the consulting side, the education side. Now you're a professor, an author, a consultant. I think about Dr. Southekal is your fourth book. That right there.
Arvind, you have said a very important thing. I don't want to steal somebody else's thunder, which is going to come in May next month. So stay tuned. There's going to be some big news coming on my fourth book.
Well, I gotta invite you over again. As soon as the fourth book comes, you've got to come back to my show. I have to talk about
absolutely.
this,
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's do that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But I don't want to steal somebody else's thunder in this show. So let's wait for a couple of weeks. In May, there's going to be a big announcement. Then after that, I'm ready to come to your show once again and talk about my fourth book.
That is fantastic, sir. That is absolutely awesome. Now, you mentioned something that really touches my heart, right? Business leaders have not considered data as an important asset. Much so, folks like Doug Laney, for example, they talk a lot about data being an economic asset where it just drives tangible business value and not just qualitative side, right? Talk to me a little bit about your, the data for business performance. See, that is your company. That is a book behind you. That was your first book. What are some of the core principles that you believe in and you teach to all the, companies that you work with that allows them to be more data driven?
Yeah. So, that's a very big question, very great question. So it will take probably hours and hours to discuss this, but I'll just talk about a couple of things which are very close to me, which I'm looking when I go to companies and I see what are the things that are lagging. The first thing is, if you look at a high level, what is the goal of data for your company? What do you want to use data to do what? So many times companies are not very clear the role of data in the company. So I say the role of data in the company is three things. Number one, operations. Number two, compliance. Number three, analytics. And generally, it is the operations and compliance activities which will help you create a critical mass of data, which you can use it to glean insights, mine data, glean insights, and use it for better decision making. So the third one is about the value, which is where Doug Laney and all those guys are going, which is about the analytics. Because operations and compliance per se is helps you run the business, but if you want to grow the business, if you want to take the company to the next level, it has to be analytics. That's number one. So accept the fact that operations and compliance are fundamental building blocks to go to the next level, which is analytics. That's where digitization really matters. That's number one. Next, number two is what are the key KPIs which you have in your company to measure and improve performance? So when you talk about analytics is not purely about decision making. Decision making for what? So I tell my clients, analytics, the role of analytics or the definition of analytics is using data to derive insights to measure and improve business performance. So if you don't believe in the culture of measuring and improving business performance, you are not going very far with data and analytics. The second component is, first thing is about digitization. The second thing is the culture of measuring and improving business performance. Let's take a simple thing about our personal health. So tomorrow I get a report, or Mr. Bob gets a report which says that a health report which says that his cholesterol levels are off, right? So he has two choices. Either he looks at the data and he says, I don't care, I'm going to throw it. Or else he says, hey guys, you have given me a score about my cholesterol levels. Let me do something and improve my cholesterol levels, which is I eat good food, I exercise, I sleep early, I get good amount of sleep and all those things. So you have a choice either to take the data which is coming from your digitization process and throw it. I don't care. I'll continue to run my operations and compliance because that's what I want. I need for my IFRS, I need for my regulators. So business is running, but I don't believe in the concepts of improving and measuring and improving my business performance because it takes a lot of change management that's there. Then again, you're not going very far with data and analytics. So that's number two, the culture, which is very much needed. Number three is about education. So when we talk about change, the biggest enabler for change in any endeavor, whether it's data analytics or whether whatever it is, it's education. If you're not educated on embarking on a change, you will again not go very far. So if you don't know how to use the data and use those insights to enable change, again, you are not going very far with data analytics. So that's the third thing, education levels in the company. That's why GE spent so much of time in training people on Lean Six Sigma. So when I joined GE, I was given a mandate by my manager, Prashanth, within 6 months, you have to get yourself certified in Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certification. So there was a mandate, there was a demand from at the highest level that you have to get certified within 6 months. So the education levels are very important. That's number three. Number four is quality data. So you need to have good quality data to run your business from a compliance and operation perspective, but even from an analytics perspective. So quality data is important. So what is that quality data? So I've written a book itself on quality data, but in the interest of time, I'll talk about the most fundamental thing, especially in the world of analytics. What is quality data? Quality data is about focusing on your business transactions. So I'll give you an example. I did a project for Canada's biggest transportation company. They said, hey, Prashanth, we need your help in Customer 360. We have a lot of customers. We want to get a holistic view of Customer 360. So I said, how many customers do you have? They said, we have 500,000, 500,000 customers. I said, oh my gosh, this is a huge number. So you want to do Customer 360 about 500,000 customers? I said, yes. But let me ask you one question. In the last 18 months, how many customers did you do business with? What were the number of customers where the invoices were cleared, sales orders were generated? That number came to 1,700. So on one hand, you have 500,000 customers, but the real customers with with whom you did business was 1,700. So my strategy was, let's look at this 1,700 and focus on cleaning the data, get a holistic view of customer 360 on this. So the bigger question, there's a lot of things which we can discuss about this particular problem. But the main thing which I want to focus is tell my clients, when we talk about data quality, first focus on business transactions. Because there is a relationship.
Right? Measure what matters. They say that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it all ties back. You have said the right thing. I talked about measurement. Now you talked about measurement when you have the real monetization associated with sales orders, purchase orders, contracts, and everything, right? Yep. So now we look at these customers and start this relationship, because transactional data is the one which builds a relationship between you and your counterparty. There is a monetary value associated with this. There is a relationship associated with this. There is compliance associated with transactional data. It's a lot of benefits with transactions. So overall, when I go to my clients, we can say, oh, let's start with the high thing. Let me understand your objectives and all those things. It's like a standard theoretical stuff. It takes too much of my time. So my strategy is go straight to the point and ask my clients, tell me your KPIs. What are you using data for? Why do you need analytics? Why analytics? Oh, it's not that I'm doing analytics because Facebook is doing it. No, you are doing analytics because you want to get better. You want to measure your current state and get better from next month, so on and so forth. So those are the things which will help companies get value out of data and analytics.
Your four things that you just stated, right? From digitization to culture to education to quality. If I pivot that to a little bit and I hear your explanation, it almost sounds like you're looking at, there are ways to generate data. In other words, digitization. So like you said, the standard applications like CRM, ERP, HRMS, data warehouse, these are all the standard applications. Some generate data, some host data or store data, right?
Yeah.
And the second piece is culture, or in other words, how do we use that data, right? You generate so much data, but if there is no point aligning that towards companies' objectives, then there is no value to that piece of data, right? It's just as they say, so many other words, dark data, this data, all those kind of data just sitting in the corner. Then the third piece is education, which is a way to align this usage of data back to the business objectives. So in simple words, make money, save money, be compliant, all these ways to use the data, that is your education. Last but not the least, that's you said about quality. This is the ability to use the right kind of data for the right use case to the right person at the right time. Correct?
Absolutely. So coming to the dark data thing, there's one statistic which I want to tell the audience.
Sure.
IBM and Carnegie Mellon did a study, and they found that 90% of the data that is in the company is unused, is dark data. Forrester did a very similar study, and they found that number to be 73%. There was one more research, I think it was Nucleus which did the study. They said that 60% of the value of the data is lost before it is actually captured. Right? Yep. So some food for thoughts for all those people. So when I go to when I do my projects for my clients, I said, okay, what's the time span you're looking at these reports? They say 5 years, 10 years. I said, I use a concept called as a half-life of data. So this is a concept which was consulting has come up with this, which is basically the time it takes for the value of the data to reduce by 50%. So the data in, like for example, the data in Walmart is different from the data in Shell. The purchase order data in CP Rail is different from the purchase order data in, let's take Ford, for example. Every data is different. Every company is different. So if you have to take a weighted average, which is what my company has done, we did a weighted average of all the numbers, and we found that the half-life of data is 8 hours. Oh my gosh, this is 8 hours. 8 hours, the value of data reduces by 50%. But at the same time, I'm not saying that let's go with 8 hours. Go with something reasonable, 2 years, for example. Yep. But if you are making decisions today based on the data which is 10 years back, it is practically useless. No business in the world today is running on the same conditions that were there 10 years back. Absolutely. If you are in things are so volatile. We are living in the VUCA world, right? Things are so volatile. Things are so disruptive. So if you are making decisions in 2024 based on data in 2012, that means your decision is completely wrong.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's not just the data, right? It is the behavior of the people changes every other year. Now it's moving
Absolutely.
even faster, right? With AI and telematics and all these new ways to generate data, there is more ways to generate data. There is more ways to know about a customer. I was with a customer day before yesterday, and he literally pulled out my first name and my last name and Googled me and found out my entire family name or my, my wife and everything else. And he's like, this is free. This is not even paid data. So I can find everything about you right there in the internet, right? Now, the question is, my data keeps changing. So how does a Target or a Walmart or Amazon, for that matter, target Arvind and not my segmentation of the population? Another way to target the customers with their behavioral activities, right? So this is this is tremendous. But Prashanth, just interesting. I know, you are very passionate about what you consult. Now, you're also a teacher, a professor. How do you convey this message to a undergraduate or a graduate student who is falling in love with this world of data, or maybe not, right? They're all hyped up about this AI, but good AI needs good data. So how do you teach this to your in your training courses to your students?
Yeah. So, when you talk one hand, which is consulting, next is being a professor, being a trainer.
Yeah.
I see both the roles are fundamentally the same.
Is that right?
It's actually about education. So when I go to talk to my clients, most of the time I'm educating them about what you can do with data, what you cannot do with data, how to make data, how data can be an asset, and how data can be a liability if you don't manage it well. So I educate my clients about the value proposition of data. The same thing I do on training and teaching as well, which is also educating a different set of audience. So overall, every day, what I do is education, telling people about the value of data, what to do, what not to do, and all those things. So coming to the education part, so there are two major stakeholder groups which I teach. 90% of the teaching is for corporates, where people get it, like somebody, purchasing manager, comes for my training and he wants to know how I can use data analytics for improved supply chain performance. So he gets it. So for him, the education levels are like straightforward. I don't have to educate him about the value of data and analytics and all those things. Whereas the second place where I go at IE, so there are two things. One is knowledge, next is jobs. So they are not just coming to my course to learn something. Ultimately they want to get a job.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I even tell them what kind of jobs are available, because I am in the job market every day.
Absolutely.
Every day I'm talking to my prospects, I'm talking to my clients to get more work. So I tell the students at say for example at IE, what kind of skills you need to get a job in the world of data analytics. Sadly, I might get into some trouble here, Arvind, but I'm saying this, but again I will say the same thing. Many people think that when you do a course on data and analytics, you become a data scientist. But in my view, the amount of jobs as a data scientist is very, very small. So there's a lot of jobs outside the world of data science, but very little job in the field of data science. So I'll give you a story. I did my MBA from Kellogg, Northwestern Kellogg. Then after a few years, I went back again and I did a 1-week course on customer analytics. So in that course, before I went to the course, it was on Monday. Few weeks earlier, we were given an assignment to do it so that we submit it before we land in Evanston. So I did that assignment and we were taking the course. I was asking some questions to the professor and everything. So in the third day, during the break, the professor comes to me and says, tell me your background. What do you do? Your questions are very different from what other people are asking. Oh, what kind of work you do? So I asked him, before coming to this course, you gave us a spreadsheet with 50,000 rows and 3 columns. How much time did you take to make that spreadsheet? I asked him. He said, actually I didn't make it. My TA, my technical assistant did it. But I remember him saying that he took a very long time to make that spreadsheet. And it was very complex. It was very time consuming. It was very frustrating to make that spreadsheet. So I told him, I do that kind of work. I prepare the data so that you have quality data to derive insights. In many times in the business world, nobody gives you a clean data in a silver platter.
Yep.
They'll not even give a data. They'll just tell the problem. It's your job to define the hypothesis, get the data, source the data, clean the data, prepare the data, engineer the data, put it in a canonical system, which is whatever you call it, is data lake, data warehouse, whatever it is. Then you run your analytical models, which is regression or whatever it is, derive those insights. If somebody gives me clean data, and if somebody tells me, Prashanth, this is the dependent variable, this is the independent variable, this is Y, this is X, this is P value, this is F value and everything, you don't need a senior data scientist to do it. Even an automated tool can do it. Even a small primary school kid can do it. So majority of the work in the world, in the field of data analytics, is in data integration and data engineering. So I tell my students, it's good to know all about regression, t-test, ANOVA, and all those things, but most of the jobs are in the field of data engineering, data integration, data governance, data analysis, and all those things. So don't expect, as soon as you take my course and you get your MBA and go to the workforce, people will call you and say, hey, Mr. X, take this data and run regression and tell me whether this model is good or not. That hardly happens in the real world. So these days, more and more business people are coming to data analytics. So I call them the concept of citizen data scientists. Like a procurement manager is coming and learning data analytics. A finance manager is learning data analytics. So they don't need an exclusive data scientist to work on data analytics. They need somebody who has a business domain to work on data and derive those insights. So they need people who are closer to business and data to work on those statistical concepts and derive those insights.
I think there are a couple of things I want to double down on what you said, right? So one, I'm a believer of this. I'm pretty sure you are too. The future of, interacting with data is going to be plain English. It's not SQL, it's not Python, it's not data science algorithms, it's English, right? All these Gen AI agents are making it easy for you to interact with the data, right? That's number one. Number two, I teach colleges as well. And one of the primary things I tell people is that if you take a course to write Python, good for you, learn it. But I think those jobs in the future, in the 10 years from now, I don't know what it's going to morph into, but the thing that these machines cannot take away from you is the ability to engineer, model, analyze data, and map it back to business requirement. Only a human can do that, right? A machine can create synthetic data, it can process the data, but it cannot contemplate the value of the data or the relevance of the data to a particular use case. There is no Gen AI that can associate that, right? It can only give you recommendations. At the end of the day, a human on the other side has to still yes or no that recommendation, right? So for me, that English is what you said is a very powerful thing, which is you really have to focus on the integration, engineering, modeling of the data. But if you focus just on the tools and the toolkits, it's going to change every day. I mean, I'm seeing news every day that there is one new Gen AI tool that's coming out and it's faster than the previous version, right?
Yeah.
So there's no point. What you learned yesterday might be outdated tomorrow, right? But one question on that note, one of the challenges that I see is the future workforce, even the current workforce in large extent, is struggling to understand how their roles will change with this whole AI evolution. What in your travel and in your consulting, what are you hearing? I mean, is it going to change? Do we need to change, or your process, your thinking still remains largely the same?
No, overall, it's there's one thing which I think the biggest skill one can have today is not on Gen AI or regression or not on SAP or whatever it is. The biggest skill I think one can have today is how to be adaptable. So adaptability, I think, is the biggest skill one can have today. Things are going to change a lot faster as well. So the biggest thing that one can have is the adaptability skill. So overall, that's at a high level, Arvind. So I would say things will change for sure, but you have to adapt yourself. You have to change, because what you are doing today might not be the same as what you'll be doing now or doing 15, 20 years later. But overall, if I look at the specific below adaptability, what are the skills that matter? There are two things which I've consistently seen, not just with me, but even people around me who are successful.
Okay.
The one thing is they are great in communicating. So communication skills, they're excellent. So when I look at people who have been successful around me, it's their communication skills. That's number one. Next, number two, it's their people skills, working with people. So
empathy.
Understanding people needs, work with the team, and helping other people succeed, and all those things, right? So the two skills, regardless of whatever ways, whatever technology is going to come and go, communication and people skills will remain the same. And the third component could be all these dynamics which are there, where you have to adapt and learn and everything. But people and communication skills, when I talk about communication, it is reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Listening is also a great communication skill.
Absolutely. Prashanth, I think we are out of time. I would love to continue the conversation. Is there anything else that I've missed that you want to cover?
No, one thing I would say, if this field of thanks again, Arvind, for your time. So the field of data and analytics is pretty vast. So there's a lot of materials in the internet. I have shared a lot of blogs in Forbes, over 50 different blogs in different places in Forbes, Datavasity, SAP Insider, everything. The 3 books which I have written. First one, the orange one, Data for Business Performance. Second one, Analytics Best Practices, Data Quality. All the royalties, by the way, from those 3 books which I get is given for charity. So I don't make any money by selling those books. So if anyone believes in learning and giving, go get my books, and you have an opportunity to not just to learn one of the hottest technologies these days, but also an opportunity to give something to people in need. So that's what I would say. So again, in the interest of time, this is what I'm doing.
Thank you, Prashanth. I will put the links to this book in my link as well. Prashanth, thank you again for being on my podcast. It's a real honor talking to you, and I wish you good luck for the next book, which I'm eagerly waiting for. Thank you so much for your time.
Take care. See you. Thanks.